Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Curator's Corner at the National Civil War Naval Museum in Columbus, Georgia. I'm Jeff Seymour, and we are approaching the end of the year, and I'd like to talk about a couple of things about donations. Well, first of all, some people like to bring items into the museum, and what they're really looking for is to get us to pay for those items. As an institution, we don't always have money to buy those items. So we are at the mercy of a number of things. How much money we've got, how much storage space we have. So there are actually a number of considerations we have to think about before we accept an item for a donation. One of the other things that people really like to think about with the museum, and it's really great that they think about us. That's a big thing. But items are not always what they seem to be. What do I mean by that? Well, people think that as museum professionals that we know about all these items and are up to date on the value of those items. Well, the thing is, as a museum professional, I cannot assign a value to an artifact. That is not something I can do to someone wanting to bring an artifact in because it's unethical. The end result is simply, since the institution may be the recipient of that item, there's a conflict of interest in the institution or someone representing the institution assigning a value to that when the donor is going to turn around and give that item to the institution and then looking to get a tax write-off. So it's just simply unethical for a museum professional to give a value, to assign a value to an artifact. We can help you find someone who appraises items, but we find several pitfalls in that. First of all, they charge for appraisals, and generally it's a percentage of whatever the end appraisal is. So it's something that we can work with you on that. So we can help find someone who is a legitimate appraiser of the type of item that you might be interested in donating. As a curator, I am always glad to help someone identify what an item is. Hey, what is this? And this helps us in a number of ways with building up our information about what's out there, what many of these items are. We may not have had contact with a particular artifact or type of artifact before, so it can help us in a number of ways. And I am more than happy to help an individual find what this item is. It's just I cannot give you a value for that. That's something that you have to do. Now, on the back side of that, you can get a tax write-off on a donation, and you should certainly look at doing that as being beneficial to yourself. So anytime you want to look at that, you should always consult a monetary professional, an accountant, a lawyer. Contact them before you do anything in terms of a donation. Find out what kind of tax write-off you can get. These things are available when you, just like any monetary donation to a charitable organization. And that's what a museum is. It's a charitable organization. So think about that prospect when you make the donation. Don't forget about that. A common thing is bringing an artifact into the museum and thinking that it's worth thousands of dollars. For instance, take this fork. Is this fork really worth thousands of dollars because it's been sitting in the family's attic for a long time? Well, it may come from the Civil War, but how many forks are there out there? And many people have this mistaken thought that, you know what, it's really valuable. And it may be valuable in terms of family history, but we would be glad to help you identify what the fork is, where it came from, maybe a manufacturer, what's the material it's made out of. But there are millions of forks out there. Just because you have something from the Civil War, like a fork, doesn't mean that it's necessarily valuable. When you are considering donating an item to a museum, you want to look at how unique an item really is. If it's an everyday item like a fork, you want to make sure that, is this a supreme example of an artifact, a type of artifact? Is this connected to someone? And one of the things you want to look to, one of those museum professional buzzwords that we use is provenance. Who did this fork belong to? Is there a clear line of succession in ownership from the person that originally owned and used this item to you? That's the provenance. And you want to have a clear provenance to help make a stronger case for an artifact. So all of those things goes into the decision-making process of whether or not we take in an artifact as a donation. So we have to consider things like, is this a prime example of a type of artifact? Is this clearly connected to someone that we are specifically telling stories about? Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget that there are financial issues involved anytime you give a donation. If it's this fork or a monetary donation, we cannot assign a value. We don't assign values. That's purely unethical. We are not accountants. We are not tax professionals, and we are certainly not lawyers, though some people would like us to be. We are not giving any sort of financial advice or legal advice, but there are these issues, and we can help guide you toward those professionals that do certain things like this, that handle these types of cases. But we do not handle those here in-house at the museum. That's something that is your responsibility. You seek out those professionals to give you the advice for financial and legal issues. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here for Curator's Corner at the National Civil War and Naval Museum.